Hier is weg.
Peer
Kan
is
ek
Nou,
gewoon
mense.
wag dit kom?
Waar's Peer heen?
Nou sy recording begin op Teams dan weet hy die presenter, hy kan net aanmute.
Okay, ons wag net, ons kyk het Peer het verlore geraak. Ons sal hom seker nou weer terugkry.
Daar sy.
Nou ja, wat het nou gebeur? Ek wil nog, weet julle wat? Ek het my skeeloogies hier uitgehaal en nou, ek het gelief in plek van geshare.
Toe win en opkom te hardloop jy.
Ekskuus?
Toe win en opkom te hardloop jy weg.
Ek het weggehardloop, ek is bang vir daai oom.
Ja.
Ek spot sommer hallo winnen. Alright. Wat ek wil doen, ek wil hierdie kant, nee, nie daai een nie, nie daai een nie. Hoekom kom my nou so op met dit so? Dis nou interessant. Ek het hier 'n ander skerm wat share en nou wil hy nie werk soos wat ek wil hê hy moet werk nie. En kom ons maak so. Kom ons maak so. Julle moet my verskoon as ek dalk 'n bietjie wegkyk. Cancel en try om weer te share, want dis hoe hy laas gedoen het. So, daar's hy, daar's hy. Daar's hy. Goed, gaan julle my sê as julle kan sien, hier staan Introduction to Amateur Radio. Kan julle my sien? Iemand net antwoord, want ek kan nie die meetingskerm op, wag, ek gaan probeer om die meetingskerm een ander kant toe weg te vat, dat ek nie vir julle so dwars sit en kyk nie. OK. Het almal van julle kans gehad? Is everybody had it? Alright, Johan, you've gone on mute. Thank you very much. We've had some background noise there. So, guys, please do not hesitate to take yourself out of mute and to ask me questions. I'm here after all to help you out. Is there anybody that has not had the chance to read through the first two chapters? If you could just indicate to me by raising your hand or unmuting yourself and just let us know quickly. Peter, yeah, no problem. Kiran, also not too much of a challenge. And there's a third hand. Can't see who else the other hand was. And Johan. All right. I've got you on two separate screens over here. So I've got a page forwards and backwards. All right. Don't worry too much. These first two sections are actually, you can read through it in about 15 to 30 minutes. There are a couple of things that are important. What it's all about is be friendly. Don't use bad words. Don't use bad language. You know, you can take your hands down now. You don't have to keep it up. It's about just being decent to one another. Then the QSL cards is about acknowledging a conversation with somebody else. Remember, we don't ask QSL cards from everybody and anybody. There are different forms of communication, different distances, and typically when we are doing long distance communication, we speak to somebody else who we don't normally speak to on a day-to-day via the repeater or something like that. Close by, we can exchange a QSL card, which is basically an acknowledgement of the conversation, or as it's also called, the QSO that has taken place. I know the Americans call it QSO. I don't know why. We call it QSO, but it's the same thing. There are people who are capable of building their own radios and own electronics equipment. Then there's building of antennas. Pretty much anybody and everybody is capable of building an antenna in one form or another. There are some antennas that are more complicated than others. There are some that are more effective than others. And then there are the ones that fit into your property and what you can do with what you've got. Not everybody's got the luxury of always being able to erect the antenna that they need. And it's a lot of times about a bit of a compromise about what antenna you can put up to and what you want to achieve. So there is a humongous amount of fun and information to be learned out of building of antennas. Then, of course, public service, emergency communication. Radio amateurs are very privileged, and they really don't mind to assist during communication, during emergencies and so on. Most of them, somewhere along the line, build up a radio station over many years. Some of us, I've been building for 25 years, and I'm still dreaming about technology and stuff that I need to add in, and have alternative sources of power to be able to run when there's like an extended power failure, those kind of things. DXing is about talking to somebody else on the other side of the world. Basically, any country that is not your own is considered a DX. And who knows how many countries are there in the world? Who can tell me? Want to take a wild guess? Anybody?
I believe something like 168 or something like that.
Yeah.
168?
100%, Ryan. It's there around. And the channel,
I didn't even Google. See it.
195. Yes, that's Peter Pick came up with a Google there. Prof. Google is good, is our friend. Now, these change, and some of the countries do not have radio amateurs at all. There are some places that are a separate entity, things like islands. There's one expedition which is basically happening at the moment. It's to Beauvais Island, and if you can spell it, it's a Bravo, Oscar, Uniform, Victor, Echo, Yankee, Beauvais. Oh, a tango at the end. It's a tango at the end. And if you will Google it, you'll see that it's a rock in the middle of nowhere, in the southern part of the Atlantic, somewhere between Cape Town and Antarctica, and a little bit west of us. It's considered to be one of the most difficult islands to get onto, because there are not good landing beaches. There's lots of rocks high up and the glacier all over the place. And there are a bunch of radio amateurs that are going to go on what we call a de-expedition to Beauvais Island. And then everybody all over the world try and make contact with them. Okay. So that is kind of exciting. Then there are contests. Myself, I like to do the contests where we go out and put up a field station where you take all of your gear with you and you plonk it down and you set it up. Some of us are having better luck at that than others, and it all depends on your preparedness and your knowledge and what you can do to be able to get up on the air. Some of the contests are short, 1 hour, 2 hours. Some are up to 24 hours and 2 days. Then there are longer duration contests, like for the whole year, to see how much somebody can contact people in a year time. Not all of the contests you've got to go out to go and do. A lot of the contests you can do for your own home station, depending on whatever your capabilities are. And there's satellite communications. There's a whole group of radio amateurs that are very, very interested in talking to all of the satellites, even on board the International Space Station. or most of the astronauts that go up there are radio amateurs, and from time they are very busy people, but yet still some of them do find the time to make a contact, or 2 or 6 or more during their off times over weekends. So maritime and off-road, there are a lot of yachts out there, small boats, not big boats. They don't have a big, huge commercial infrastructure behind them, and they rely upon what we call maritime nets, which happens at regular times and on regular frequencies, which gives these guys out to see a update on the weather and all kinds of interesting information about what's going on. Off-road communications. Now, some of you I know love the off-road and the out in the back world, and you do end up in places where cell phones don't work and you don't have any other means of communication. And this is where the radio amateur come into play, where we educate the people on how they can set up and what they can do to do communications there. Radar is basically a rapid amateur deployment. It's like putting a radio in a backpack, and you walk for a couple of kilometers and you put it down and you're up on the air and you operate. Then there's a lot about the governance of amateur radio. In South Africa, we've got the ICASA, which is the big governing body. Then we've also got the SARL, which is the South African Radio League, which are a bunch of radio amateurs that represent amateur radio and our interests with ICASA, which is the government. So the licenses come from the government, but amateur radio is sort of a self-regulating organization whereby ICASA has given us the approval to train our own members and to make sure that our own members adhere to the proper governance and so on. But don't forget, ICASA can still come and take away your license if you misbehave. So please take cognizance of that. There is a formal code of conduct that is expected of you. Now, it is things like you got to be always considerate, you got to be loyal, you got to be progressive, you got to be friendly, you got to be balanced, because radio is just a hobby, it's not everything, and you've got to be patriotic. Then important things like the radio amateur examination, or the RAE as we call it, or as it is called, is presented by SARL. And the SARL also gives us the training material, invigilators, examination centers, and so on. And then we from the different clubs provide the instructors using this material to be able to train you. Now, this license is part of what is called a harmonized amateur radio examination, or HAREC. Now, HAREC is being recognized in a good couple of countries, like we said here, internationally recognized, and it is only issued to Class A candidates who have passed the RAE in South Africa. Now, the HAREC is one part of your requirement for ICASA. The other one is your radio operator certificate license, whereby we will be testing you. Henry and I are able to do that, and we are allowed to do that, and we'll make sure that you guys pass it. There'll be lots of talk about that later on. And yes, the RAE is held twice a year, in May and October. There are 2 papers important to remember. It's a multi-choice question. You don't have an option of explaining your choices. You've either got to say A, B, C, or whatever the appropriate one is, and go with it. The second paper is on technical matters. It's got 60 questions. So you've got 40 plus 60 is 100 questions. To pass, you must obtain a minimum of 50% for each paper, and overall you've got to have 65. So if you've got 50 in the one paper, how much do you need more in the other one? You need to put 30% more in. You need to have 80% so that you can have an average of 56%. All right. So guys, please, there are a couple of freebies, as we call them. They are things that you can study and learn off the top of your head, and that will give you a good couple of points. So yeah, you got to make sure that you got to have a good pass mark. All right. But as you say, the combined papers must still achieve an overall pass mark of 65%. And despite the fact that they are 40 and 60, they both carry equal weight, the two papers. The radio operator certificate is the practical examination that we must do before we go and write the exam. Of course, very, very, very important are the restrictions. You cannot use a station for broadcasting. Amateur radio is intended for direct one-on-one and not as a community broadcasting service. Otherwise, we will be in competition with Centec and we will end up with trouble for that. Music can only be transmitted. Sorry, I've had a visitor here climbing on my lap who wants to join in on the conversation, bringing a ball. And do not music under very specific conditions, and we can talk about that later on. You're not allowed to advertise services or even products for monetary gain on amateur radio. So you can talk about products. We have got what we call a swap shop, and on the swap shop we would, donations are always welcome, Peter, yes. We do have regular what we call flea markets, and on the flea market there will always be a donations table. That is a table for equipment that was donated, which we will then make available and or trade. Sometimes we trade for money, but it is a trade. And on the flea market, we can take money, but not on the radio. All right, we're not allowed to talk about it on the radio. You may not transmit messages for reward. But if there's an emergency, of course, then you're allowed to do that. So it may not be used to pass third-party traffic, except during an emergency. All right. Now, this gets twisted maybe a little bit during motorsport events and rallies and so on, whereby we keep track of the radio, the rally drivers, and we will report from the start to the end the sequence of the drivers, and then if they arrive out of sequence on the other side, we will be aware of what has happened there. So it's all about safety of the competitors. So yeah, and of course, don't try and transmit indecent, offensive, obscene, or threatening or racist comments. And a couple of years ago, I've had the the unpleasant opportunity of having to go and speak to a radio amateur about what he had said on the radio, and yeah, wasn't pleasant, but we did manage to get him to keep his license. All right. So, but please, guys, refrain from doing that. Okay, now I want to ask you, several Local international organizations, how are we doing for time? 1922, we're good. What is the first answer here? Who would give me an option? There's something in the chat. Peter, yeah. Tristan da Cunha, yes, that's also an island which they sometimes assist. The first one, I would agree there with Vernon or Peter. Yes, thank you very much. Both B and C, the International Amateur Radio Union and International Specific Community on the Radio. Sorry, and they are not applicable. That one is definitely out. But ICASA and the IARU are responsible. Now, which organization, number two, actually number two, I would go and say it is A, the ITU. The ICASA is part of that. The ITU does that on a worldwide basis. ICASA is locally in South Africa. Does it make sense, Peter? Sorry, I can't see all of you at the same time. So, sure. Yes, Peter, thank you. So, number two's answer is actually the ITU. But ICASA does belong to ITU and we follow the ITU rules. So, what will ICASA's function then be? I would go with number D again here. All right? Yes. International and regional cooperation, international with ITU, ARU, and the SARL, which is South African also. All right. Impose license conditions. They're the ones who ultimately apply the licenses. Number 4, you'll only know if you've read this, and it is A. Good. Some of us are Googling faster than others, but you can basically just search up here. The IARU is a worldwide federation of what? From all of the different radio amateurs. All right. Okay. All over the world. The SARL is a founding member. Yes. Non-profit, definitely. An association, individual members, yes. So number 6 is also D. SARL is governed by, number 1, volunteers, and they need to be elected. So they have to be volunteered and elected. So they've got to agree that they were going to do it, and somebody's then got to nominate them, and they'll be elected if they can. The SARL plays an advisory role, commenting on policy initiatives proposed by ICASA. Yes, that is true. Tables, new frequency, spectrum allocation, not really. We would love to, but yeah, we'd rather take guidance from the ITU and ICASA. And then advice on local and national building and planning regulations. Ooh, that one is a big one. All right. We try and work with them, but it's difficult. So the only correct one is actually A, but we are trying to get to C as well. RAE for Class A is licenses are held when? Well, that's an easy one. No. May and October, a D as well. All right. SARL administers the RAE on behalf of who? Who is the law in South Africa? ICASA. Then the SARL prepares and publishes RAE training material applicable to what? Operating procedures, yes. Technical theory and practice, yes. Practical radio setup, yes. So it's all of them. All right. When a candidate passes the RAE, the SARL issues the candidate with what? First of all, it's the HAREC and then the radio operator's license. All right, so the answer here is D. Guys, are you still happy with me over here? Any questions? I'm not hearing anything. Everybody's still happy. Thank you very much for the thumbs up there. Janko, great stuff. All right. You guys got a problem with the fact that I'm doing it in English? Nope. Peter, thank you. All right, guys, please, I need you to interact with me. It's horrible sitting here talking and not being able to see and hear.
Talking to yourself and educating yourself better.
Of course. That's how it is.
Don't
So,
have licenses yet, so we can't transmit.
no.
That's a very good one.
Not yet. Not yet. Over here, we can transmit on Teams. We are allowed to transmit, but not on the radio. All right. All right, guys. Okay, so this is all about ITU and the services. This is a little bit of a longer session over here. The next one, important. We're talking about HF phone procedures. HF means high frequency. Somebody else calls it shortwave, whatever. Then there is VHF and also UHF somewhere around. Now, we'll talk more detail about them, but one of the most important things over here is to learn the phonetic alphabet. This is a freebie. The phonetic alphabet is a big, big, big freebie. All right. Now, if you look at this, the underline is where the accent go. Most of them are in the beginning of the word. Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot. Golf is short, doesn't have an accent. Then interesting, like J, Juliet, with the et being emphasized. November, with the middle claim ik there. Quebec at the end. The one that trips up a lot of people, Papa. Some people just say Papa, and Papa is probably the better one. Now, the reason for this alphabet has been fine-tuned over many, many years and across many, many, many languages, so that even radio amateurs who do not speak the same language can spell out and transport messages using this international phonetic alphabet. Now, sometimes when the conditions are noisy, it's not so easy to hear what's going on the other side. Normal English doesn't work too well, and we'll ask a operator on the other side to please repeat the message phonetically. And then you listen and he will spell it out, basically something like this message over here. This ZS1 ZS1AM. You will call it Zulu Sierra 1 Alpha November. Okay.
Try and spell the password out to somebody over the phone or over radio.
Yes.
That's why you have a phonetic alphabet.
Or even over a telephone. If you've done support, I've had to spell a password or a command over the telephone, and then you sit there with your eyes closed and you desperately thinking about what the guy is seeing on the other side. And that is when
talking to people that talk different, people that are older, don't always catch things, the same things, everything.
Absolutely.
I've seen it myself from a support point of view, the same thing. But yes, no, imagine it that way. Just go and do a password generator for yourself on the internet and try and spell it out every time with this alphabet. Very good way to practice it.
And another way that I've seen is that registration numbers of cars. You know, if you see a car that goes past you, Kilo Charlie, 59 Alpha Tango, whatever, you know, Golf Papa at the
And
end.
it's good for the dash cam as well.
Oh yeah, the dash cam also then records what the people that you've noticed. All right.
Because the dash cams can't see the number plates always very well. That's why I'm saying it. So no.
They don't always, but they do record you. So
Yeah.
yes. All right. So guys, please watch out for the strange characters like Juliet, which the emphasis is on the back, Papa and Quebec, which are also on the back end. The rest of them are in the front, which is easy, and except for things like November, which is in the middle, and then Golf, which doesn't really have a accent. All right. Now, very important. Before you try to make a contact, you should listen for a couple of seconds to see if the frequency is clear. Now, the fact that the frequency is clear on your side doesn't mean that it's clear on the other side. All right. A good example of this, a very popular frequency or a band of frequencies. Sorry, so that you don't get some nugs with F for Freddy. Yes, that's 2. Foxtrot, absolutely. In Cape Town and Pretoria, 40 meters does not always propagate all that way. So you could be sitting on a frequency on 40 meters in this side, and somebody in Cape Town can be sitting on that same frequency, and you both could be having a conversation and not interfere each other. But then you've got the poor Saka who sits in Bloemfontein, and he can hear both sides of both conversations. All right. So always good to ask, is this frequency in use? And if you are going to interfere with somebody else, then somebody will answer you. If that happens, please go away. Go talk to another frequency. Don't tell them to go away, because they have been there already. Nobody can hog a frequency, and we've got to try and be courteous to each other at all times. It is very, very, very important that you are courteous. All right. So if nobody answers you, then you call. Now, CQ is something that we call when we want to ask for a contact. And this is a very good way to do this. It is CQ, 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 just 3 times. This is, and your call sign phonetically, Sierra, Zulu, Sierra 1, Alpha, November, and then you repeat, Zulu, Sierra 1, Alpha, November. And I hate this over. We don't have to do that. You can just stop talking after the end of the November. All right. You don't have to say over at the end of a sentence or whatever. Now, CQ is a very unique sound, and you will very quickly, you'll be amazed how easy it is to pick it up, even out of noise and everything that you hear, CQ, 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 and you're turning down the dial there and you hear the CQ, CQ. Then you stop and you tune in and you miss the first part. And then you listen to the noise and you hear the second part, Alpha, November. And then when he repeats Zulu, Sierra 1, Alpha, November, by this time your mind is tuned in to the sounds, the background noise, the rhythm of the voice, so that you can understand what's going on. And this really makes it so much easier for people on the other side to hear you. And do speak clearly, please. Wait for 5 seconds. don't keep on calling, and then because somebody's coming, scanning through the band, and they just hear you calling, and you're not giving them a chance to answer, they're just going to carry on. All right. Now, if you want to go to a specific place, you can call something like CQDX or CQ ZS2 land. If you want to call for somebody in that specific area, call area, then you can do that. And also, if you hear somebody calling a CQ on the other side and he's calling for a specific zone, make sure that you are in that zone. Don't just answer. If somebody calls CQ Europe or CQ Germany and you are not there, please do not answer. All right. If somebody in Japan is calling CQ Africa or from somewhere far away CQ DX from a non-African station, then please by all means answer. All right. But you've got to make sure you know where the station is listening for a response. Now, on DXpeditions, they will a lot of times work what they call split, where they transmit on one frequency, but they listen on another one. All right. They'll say something like this: Sierra Tango 0 Romeo Yankee up 5 means he'll be listening 5 kilohertz higher than what he is transmitting on. All right. Now, you need to have a suitable antenna connected. And if you have an ATU, you must make sure that it's set up correctly for your frequency and antenna. If it is not set, do not tune up on a frequency where you hear the CQ call. The reason for this is that the ATU will transmit a signal, and that signal can interfere with the guys that are calling. So what do? You change your frequency either up or down by at least 3 kilohertz if you're working in HF to an unoccupied frequency, and then after checking that it is not in use there, you can tune up here and then return to the frequency where you heard the call. 3 kilohertz is not going to be a problem for your antenna. All right, it shouldn't be. This is also very, very important because sometimes you hear somebody talking and then you hear people tuning up or people whistling and all kinds of things that it shouldn't be happening. All right. So please don't be that guy. All right. Of course, always wise to check everything before you search for stations. All right. If you hear somebody calling and you're ready to answer, then you will answer him. Okay. And of course, the station that is being called is given first, and your call sign coming last. All right. Don't get it wrong, please. They say over here it's unnecessary to repeat the call sign of the station you are calling. Well, yeah. Now, if somebody is just calling for a contact, it's useful sometimes just to answer with your call sign. Just you give your call sign and you wait. If he had heard you, he will come back with your call sign. Then you know you can carry on. But important, don't just go crazy here, guys. Please just be patient. All right. And the other thing is over here, if you are uncertain about the station's call sign, ask specifically. Now, some operators will get very, very upset if you answer on a request, but you can't hear what his call sign is. You can hear he's calling CQ, but you can't make out his call sign. So rather spend a couple of minutes or seconds or whatever extra listening until you are sure that you've got that calling station's call sign correctly before you attempt to answer it. All right. If conditions are favorable and you've got a powerful station, when you give your call sign once, it's good enough. Now, remember, good DX operators can make over 300 contacts an hour. Now, that is a lot of contacts. You divide that by 60 and you get what? 5 contacts per minute. A minute divided by 5 is 20 seconds on a is less than what? What's a minute divided by 5? It's about 12 seconds per contact. All right. So you got to be careful, guys. All right. Once you've made contact, the first thing you do is to exchange a signal report, and usually basic information like a name and a location of the operator. Now, some guys on the other side will only want a signal report and your location. They don't even care about your name, or they will look your name up on an online database. All right. But a signal report is always required. Okay. If you can't hear what the other guy is saying, don't try and make contact on him, because you'll only frustrate yourself and the other guy. And this is another freebie, the RST. That's called readability and strength. If you are using voice only, when you are going with CW and RTTY, you need to use the tone additionally as well. But please make sure you know this. Readability of 1, unreadable. I can hear there's something, but I can't make out what he's saying. Number 2, occasionally you can hear a word, because sometimes the noise comes and goes and comes and goes, and you can hear some of it. And then it would be a 2, because you still can't really make it out, just words here and there, but it doesn't make sense. If it starts to make sense, you can say his readability is number 3. Number 4 means, you know, he might have to repeat the character or 2, 3, or say something once or twice, but you can hear him. And a 5, of course, means perfectly readable. All right. Now, that depends on your skill as well, because not everybody is capable of picking the voice out of the noise as effectively as each other. So readability can be different in both directions. Propagation can be different in both directions. So make sure you listen clearly to how well the guy on the other side is able to hear you as well. Does this make sense, the readability part? Guys, give me an indication. Yes, Peter, thank you. Anybody else? Kieran, Ryan, yes, thank you, guys.
Yes.
All right. Next part, signal strength. Now, this is not, if your radio has got a signal meter, this is kind of nice to have and everything, but this isn't the alpha and the omega, because that signal strength meter on the radio differs from radio to radio, from antenna to antenna, from coax to coax that you've put in. You can have 2 of exactly the same radios with exactly the same antennas, a couple of kilometers apart, and they will be receiving a source signal differently. All right. Important at 9, is a very, very good strong signal. All right. Extremely strong. 8 strong, moderate strong, good, fairly good. When you get to a 4, you start having problems with readability as well. Okay. But, and I have seen this happen a couple of times. There is background noise, and you can see it on your signal meter. It's an S2 or an S3 or an S4, the noise. And suddenly you hear a voice, crystal clear, but you can't see the signal because that signal is in the noise. And then when you've got newer equipment or fancy equipment like SDRs or things like that, you can go and look at that signal. And you will notice that there is a certain noise, but the noise is only in a part of the piece of the signal that you're listening to. And the voice part that you hear is on the other part that is not occupied by that noise. And believe it, the human voice has got a lot of redundancy or harmonics in the voice. And not two of you will be hearing me exactly the same. And or so it can happen that a part of the signal is obscured, but still there's a part that is clear as a bell. All right. So I've seen a signal strength of 1, but a readability of 5, and a 5-1, and I couldn't believe it. All right. Very interesting. The tones I'm not going to go into now, but it is important for you for the exams. All right. Now, if somebody gives you a 5-9, then it's extremely readable with a strong sign, and you will not make use of the phonetic alphabet. It's then not required because you can use normal language, normal English. But sometimes we talk to people with limited English. Italians, Russians, Spaniards, sometimes South America, you'll get to them. Then there is another code, a Q code. And there are examples of this. And the Q code, there are about 20 of them, also an exam freebie. All right. Telegraphy, abbreviations, here we go. A lot of them are QR and then a letter, makes it easy. G for exact frequency, readability of my signals, okay. L, QRL, QRM, and QRN are important ones. QRO is power up. QRP is lower power. And then Morse code, QRQ faster. QR is slower. QRT when you are going to stop transmitting or closing down your station. QRV, are you ready? Or QRU, do you have anything for me? So each one of these codes can be used either as a question or a statement. And for instance, sometimes we will use something like QSL. Can you acknowledge receipt? If you are on a rally and you want to know that the guy on the other side has received all of your message, instead of asking, oh, did you hear everything which I have said? Are you sure you've heard everything that I've said? You can just say QSL. And if he then answers QSL, then you know it's okay. And then you can carry on because you've got lots of information to transport. If he then says QSB, that means that, oh, your battery is going flat or there's an interfering signal, your signal is disappearing. So listen out for that. What is your location? QTH is a very nice one to remember and use. Thank Marty for the QSL there. QSY is to change frequency. We're going to stuck here with where we are. So the Q codes, very, very important here on page 28. All right. Things, example like QRX5 for 5 minutes to go. We've got 7 left. So I need to speed up quite considerable. If you are into Morse code, guys, please, this is nice part to read about and everything. There's a lot of stuff about Morse code and even to ask questions about it as well. There will be a later section about the repeaters, so I don't want to be gone. Important things, a logbook. We always use UTC, Universal Time Coordinated, or GMT, is the same thing. We live at GMT +2. What goes dot dash, dot dash, dot dash, dot dash, that's AA. Sorry, Peter. But there are others as well. I'm not good at Morse code, so don't ask me that. You're going to confuse me.
Quick question on the UTC, if I may. The UTC and GMT, I understand the only difference is the one has daylight savings and the other one does not. GMT does not have daylight savings and UTC has.
No, they're exactly the same. Even UTC does not use daylight savings. You know,
Okay.
We use SAST, South African Standard
Yes.
Time. And
GMT +2.
UTC +2 or GMT +2. Even countries, when they change it, they've all got different names that they call their time zones. But UTC is always UTC and just UTC, and UTC is the same all around the world.
And
Right.
it's London time, if it helps.
It's London time. Yes, pretty much.
That's
Very
where the
much.
Greenwich Meridian is.
Yes, sir. That's it. All right. East of that line, we are plus, we are before them. West of that line is a minus, we are behind them. New York is at -6, I believe. We are at a +2, so we got an 8-hour difference between us. Simple like that. All right. QSL cards. It's always decent and nice to acknowledge a communication with somebody on the far end. There are a couple of methods of sending QSL cards. All right. Now, we've got a couple of minutes and a lot of questions here. To prevent annoying or jamming at other users when tuning up your transmitter, initially tune where? On a harmonic outside the band, directly into an antenna, dummy load, directly into a dipole. Well, none of them are correct, and 3 of them are all of them are correct as well. Does it make sense what I'm saying? The bottom line is you've got to have a antenna connected to be able to talk to somebody else on the other side. It could be a dipole. And a dummy load, you're not going to put a signal out on the other side. A harmonic, that's difficult to calculate and work back. No, don't do that. So it's either an antenna or a dipole if you want to go to it. But you got to watch out what antenna you're on, or what frequency you're on, so you don't go over the other people. All right. So watch out for questions like this. And the correct answer to this question would be either B or C or D. So saying that dipole and is also an antenna, I would go with C. If you transmit into a dummy load, nobody's going to hear you. All right. And you can't interfere with other guys. Also, if you're testing your radios, the guys that are building radios and stuff that want to test them, please make use of a dummy load. Amateur bands are formulated and they should be observed because in our country, they are mandatory. All right. CQ, call for a contact with another amateur station. Before making a CQ, listen before you call. All right. Immediately prior to transmitting, a licensed operator should always check everything and listen to check whether the frequency is clear before you transmit. To ensure the calling station's call sign is clearly identified when inviting the contact, the caller should speak slowly and clearly, not too fast. Don't use speech compression. Don't use the highest frequency. Slowly and clearly. The tortoise always wins the race. All right. Horse code. When calling another station, it's accepted practice to give the call sign of the other station first, followed by your own call sign. Guys, can we carry on a couple of seconds beyond? Or does
No
anybody
problem.
have to drop off?
I
Yes,
can
reg aan
go.
my kant.
If you have
I
to
can go
drop,
on late.
you have to drop off, you can. Otherwise, yes, we can talk about this later on, or you can catch up with all of us. We'll help you. So, when signing off, it's an accepted practice to always give their call sign first. No, not after your call sign at the end. Yes, not after your call sign. It is always the other station's call sign first and then your call sign last. All right. How often should the call sign of the station normally be given? Well, when you are replying to another station, he has called you, he knows who he's talking to, so no more than once. All right. So when reply, once having established contact with another station on a calling frequency, because there are some frequencies which are reserved as calling frequencies, and it is used to establish a contact, but then to move to another frequency and have a QSO or conversation there. All right. When two stations are having a chat, what should you do? Listen, find out what they're talking about. Then somewhere between handing the one over to the other one, we call that an over sometimes, there should be a gap, and that's something else. When you talk, we'll even talk on the repeaters. We always ask you to give 1001, 1002, 1003, and then start talking again, so that somebody else can put in their call sign, and you know that he might want to talk. All right. And usually the guys will call him in as well then. All right. Before you come on the air for the first time, you should learn the procedures and only then venture onto the air. When you call CQ and don't get a reply, well, listen around and see if there are other guys that are calling CQ before quitting. Politics, religion, sex, offensive, indecent, no, don't. All right. Matters of mutual interest, sometimes personal a little bit. Remember, a lot of people are going to be listening to what you're saying, so be cognizant of what you're saying. Personal, technical, in a relaxed and dignified manner. Correct telephony, CQ, standing by. I would go with B. And even A, CQ. All right. Calling CQ and standing by. All right. Not correct. Yes.
Ek wil net daarso sê, jy moet CQ 3 keer sê. So die een waar dit 3 keer is, nommer A is die korrekte antwoord.
Ja, ek sou sê dis reg. Ek weet dis nie, ek dink nie dit is so krities nie, maar ja, eerder die 3 keer CQ sê. All right. It's a good habit to learn. Okay, which one of the following not correct? Clearly and not too fast is perfect. Q code should be used when the other O is inept in English. That's good. Ham jargon should be used to confuse. Nah, don't worry about that. And then this one. All right, we're not royal, so we won't go with the royal we. All right, so please. In South Africa, if you listen here and somebody's calling CQ Europe, please don't answer or do stupid things like making a noise. When operating on any band, you can operate wherever it's convenient and occupied. No. Should follow the accepted band plan for the band being used. All right, that's the only thing that you can do there. On the HF, it's good practice after contacting a station initially, signal reports, and to make sure that it is good enough for a contact before talking too much. Because even if you just carry on whacking away and the guy can't hear anything, good. You're in for an interesting response, to say the least. When conditions are good and signals are strong, you should only use sufficient power to make a good contact. All right? Before transmitting, check your antenna, check the undue reflector, check the correct frequency. Don't ever do this. This is not correct. Assume that your last settings is suitable. All right. Signal of 599, 3 digits is for CW with a good tone. But it's not a poor signal because it's a 5. A 5 is a perfectly readable with a strong and clear tone signal is the correct one there. In RST, the T, of course, is for tone. A readability report of number 2 with considerable difficulty, but it's basically still unreadable, I would say, but not completely unreadable. The S in the report to code is obtained from where? The apparent strength of the received signal, the speed, the level, the indicator. No, it is the apparent strength. So it is subjective. All right. I know a lot of people swear by the S meter, but that is also just an indicator. All right. A 5.9 is poor CW. No. Good, strong, well understood signals is the correct one there. The term 5.9 used to describe a signal is what code? Well, we call it the RST code, obviously. The use of the Q code to ensure effective communication. What is, oh, and this is where you've got to learn a lot. The Q code for standby. And someone is always monitoring. Yes, Marty. Who knows what standby is? I think it's QRX. Somebody want to check that? I can't remember. QRP is for low power. QRT means closing down the station. This one I think is QRX. I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to give it an orange. All right.
Pierre,
Yeah.
daardie ene is QRX.
Ah, you see. Yeah, I don't do this too often. So yeah, sorry. Thank you. QRT is closing down the station. Decrease power is QRP to go down. What is my exact frequency? Is QRG. The correct quote for change frequency is QSY. And what location is QTH? You see how you can get 3 points. All right. QRM. I have got a lot of noise. And it's usually, we joke and we say it's man-made. So man-made noise is QRM. QRN, Nelly, QR November means static or interference from other signals. QRT, I'm going to close down now. It's a repeat. Shall I stop sending? Well, QRT. Well, no. What is this? I can't remember that.
It's
one.
QRT.
I think it's QRT. Yeah.
It is QRT. Sure, I stopped sending. I'm reading it now.
You're sitting there on top of that one with 2 screens, probably.
Looking at the paper right in front of me, printed out.
That helps. When will you call me again? I think that one is QRX.
Yep.
All right. Are my signals fading? That is QSB. That I know for a fact. Are you ready? QRV. Correct code. Can you acknowledge receipt? Remember when I said, are you okay? Did you hear what I said? QSL. Shall I send slowly? QRS, I think it is.
Yep.
All right. Switch your radio set on and all you hear is the station's call sign in telephony. You call QRA, QRZ, what is your call sign? No. You listen before you start transmitting. All right. I have said that. New amateur, hear all sorts of phrases being used by others. Please don't try and follow them. Don't accept them as correct and acceptable. You rather use plain language with normal meanings. All right. Nice one. What is the correct phonetic spelling of the word plug? Well, there's only one that starts with a papa, and it's that one. Lima, uniform, golf. All right, so it's this one. Which one is incorrect? America is not correct. That should have been alpha. But India is correct. Correct way to say the P would be papa. The correct way to say J would be Juliet. Correct phonetic spelling for the word ship. Who wants to try? Who wants to give a go?
D. For Delta.
Delta. Thank you.
That's a good example why you can do it for Bravo and Delta sound. It's the same.
Exactly. If you say Delta and Echo, if you say D and E and B, which one have I said just now? You know, Bravo, Delta, Echo. You can clearly hear the difference. If I say B, D, E, even when this good quality is difficult to hear. Call signs using phonetic should be given, I would say, on the first contact with the station to confirm that you've got each other's call signs correctly. Coil would be Charlie. Ocean is not correct. Oscar is India, Lima. Okay. Which of the following uses that? Bravo. Uniform golf. There we go. Which of the following is correct? remember, CQ times 3. Okay. CQ dx, CQ dx, CQ dx, blah, 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 K. This is Morse code. All right. Telegraphy is that voice or CW? Careful. Telegraphy is CW or RTTY. So this one is not correct. This is the correct one. Okay. When using Morse code initially, oh, please, please, please don't go too fast, because believe me, the guy on the other side is probably much better than what you are, and he's going to kill you. All right. So send it a bit slower than the maximum speed that you can comfortably receive. Repeaters are normally operate in FM. To reduce false triggers by interference, some repeaters are activated by, and over here, the tone burst is the correct option for international. But locally in South Africa, we use something called continuous tone-coded squelch, CTCSS, which is a continuous sub-audible tone that is being transmitted to keep the repeater open. All right. So for the exam, you would say tone burst, even though that is not exactly the correct answer for us. But for the HAREC, that would be a correct answer. Continuous operation of a repeater by a one station is considered inconsiderate. The main purpose of a terrestrial repeater is usually to increase the range of mobile stations, because at a fixed station you should have proper antennas to go very far. But it can be done for fixed stations, a range increase as well. Pretoria is huge, and not all of us are within easy range of the repeater. So we even use this to increase the range for fixed stations in Pretoria as a classic example. A net is a bunch of people talking, and a net is usually where there's a controller. All right. During a break on that frequency, you can give your call sign and then wait to be called in. When using a repeater on VHF, it's good practice to use simplex. No, don't. And believe me, I am pretty far south of Pretoria, and I know, and there are a good couple of older radio amateurs, older hands that have been around a long time that use a simplex. The guys that are close by don't realize it, but the guys that are far away like me, we can't hear it. So use the duplex mode. You call on the input and listen on the output frequency. All right. Don't do any of the other stuff. When using a repeater, signal report is not really good or worthwhile. The one thing that you can say is I copy you loud and clear. Some guys will say 2 by 2, too loud and too clear, but it's really just loud and clear. When using a repeater, it's a correct procedure to pause between overs. Please, please, please. All right. To pause for a considerable time, not too much, but yeah, that's it. You know, what is considerable? I usually say count 1001, 1002, 1003. All right. It's good practice when using a repeater to be polite and allow other stations to join the conversation is the better one there. When you wish to pass an urgent message, you should press the microphone, shout, whistle, no. Wait for the end of an hour, identify yourself, and sometimes you can just say, ZS6 Papa Julia to tell for an urgent message and let go. And then the guys will always back down and give you a chance to talk. All right. Don't do any of the other stuff. When you're using a repeater and you're told your signal is breaking up and unreadable, what do? You sign clear until you know that you're in a better position and can access the repeater correctly. By the way, you'll quickly learn if you drive around a lot where the signal is good and where not. All right. When using a repeater, try and keep it as short as possible to allow other guys access as well. It is a recommended practice to use, well, SAST for local and UTC for DX, yeah, but technically speaking, you should rather use UTC for all contacts, okay? But A will sometimes pass on as well. Now, 12:30 Bravo in Johannesburg is what time? Now, for this, you'll have to do a couple of calculations. Basically, this is local time in Johannesburg. We're 2 hours ahead of UTC. UTC is sometimes also recorded as Zulu time, so it will be 10:30 UTC in New York. All right. QSL card has a standard size, has the printed
Sorry, Pierre.
blocks. Yo.
Number 69, the previous one.
Yes.
How does the alphabet work again on that on the time zones?
They're basically just two things, Bravo time and Zulu time. Now,
Okay.
Bravo time is always local time. Zulu time is UTC, as simple as that. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, UTC is UTC. All right. Does
All right,
that make
didn't
sense?
catch that.
Yeah.
Was not aware of that fact.
But does that make sense now?
It makes sense.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
Yeah, you sometimes hear the Bravo and Zulu, and if you don't know it, you don't know it. All right, so number 70 is all of the above. So guys, you must please do like what Ryan has done there and ask questions. The fastest way to get a QSL card, I can't remember which one it is, but I believe it's this OQRS, if I remember correctly. The cheapest way is through the Bureau, or even LOTW, because no, Logbook of the World doesn't give you a QSL card, but it does give you an electronic acknowledgement, Logbook of the World, an electronic acknowledgement of a QSO. The fastest way to confirm a contact will be Logbook of the World, all right? So, yes, and that's my story. And sorry, guys, I did run about 20 minutes over. Was that too bad? Come, you can unmute yourselves and talk to me now. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much for that. That was great.
You guys, Peter, Danke, guys.
Thank
Sorry,
you very much.
I can only see one guy. Have you got anybody
No.
with any questions?
No, all good on my side. Thank you.
No.
Guys, have a
There's a
lovely
lot of freebies here to go through in this
Yes.
section.
There are a lot of freebies. The big freebies are the phonetic alphabet, the QSO codes, the Q codes. They are two big freebies that you should know.
What is the origin behind the Q codes, though?
Originally, remember the first radio transmitters were only CW. And when you try to transmit a lot of messages, these Q codes are there for sort of organization around the message. You know, talk faster, talk slower, send a stronger signal, send a weaker. If you look at those Q codes, you'll see it's all about controlling of the flow of the conversation. All right.
I'm trying to get to the origins of how they got to the abbreviation eventually. If there's some origins to the abbreviations.
Telegraphy, and it's the same thing. Even Morse code, and there's a classic story about the Titanic, where the operator in the Titanic sent out the Morse code signal, but he was using a different set of codes than a ship that was relatively close by. But another ship, which was much further away, was using the same code set, and they could accept and understand the Q code. All right. So that sort of, when that was discovered, the ITU and everybody else started working towards standardization. And then the Morse code got standardized. Thereafter, the Q codes was used by the telegraphy operators, the guys that used to sit there and pound the Morse codes. They started off with something like the Q codes, and eventually that also got standardized. All right. And then later on, when telephony started coming into the play, we've got the Americans and the English and the French all fighting in the same World War, and they misunderstood each other. Classic examples also is a lot of the American pilots had a problem because their size of a gallon of fuel is different than what an English gallon of fuel is. And that led to some serious problems. There were planes that ran out of fuel, and you know, so all of that caused them to start using standardizations. Even the metric standard today that we use, it's about only America that still does not use the metric fully. But the radio amateurs, American radio amateurs, also use the metric standards. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's good to learn the origins because it helps to learn also easier how people, what the mindset of people were when they designed the standard.
Exactly.
And that just makes the memory easier to call for and to learn and everything as well.
You know, understanding why you are doing something is a lot more important than just learning something, you know?
Exactly. And given that these things come so long, there was really considerable thought putting already into it. So why go and change it? So knowing why it came such a way and the way it is really helps learning it, and that you can train your mindset into that train of thought already.
For example, the Titanic, more lives could have been saved if the closest ship could have understood that it was an emergency. Because remember, at the time when the Titanic was put on the water, QRT Peter, thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely evening. There we go. You see, he's going down. What I was saying was that the Titanic was considered to be unsinkable. And then it did happen. All right. Johan, thank you very much. Anybody else, guys? Thank you for the nice chat. Thank you for
Pierre, ek gaan die opname stop as jy tevrede is daarmee.
Jy moes dit al lank al gestop het. Ek is al hoeka besig om Afrikaans en Engels deur mekaar te praat.
Okay, ek stop hom nou.
Janku.
Ja, ek gaan net weet wat gaan ons nou op donderdag